I always believed that the bond between a mother and daughter was unbreakable, that no matter what happened, family would always come first. That's why when my mom called me one evening in tears saying she was drowning in medical debt and on the verge of losing the house, I didn't hesitate. I didn't ask questions. I didn't double-check her story. I just listened. She told me her insurance barely covered anything anymore, that her prescriptions had gotten too expensive, and that she might have to sell her home if she couldn't come up with $15,000, 0 cents in the next few weeks. She sounded desperate, broken, and ashamed to even ask. "You've always been the strong one, Jess," she said through sniffles. "I wouldn't ask if it wasn't serious." And maybe that's what hurt the most later, not just the lie, but how easily I believed it, how much I wanted to believe it. That week, I sold the most valuable thing I owned, a fully restored 1969 Ford Mustang that my dad left me before he passed away. That car was my pride and joy. I'd spent 3 years working overtime at the hospital, picking up double shifts, pouring every spare dollar I had into bringing it back to life. It wasn't just a car, it was the last piece. I always believed that the bond between a mother and daughter was unbreakable, that no matter what happened, family would always come first. That's why when my mom called me one evening in tears, saying she was drowning in medical debt and on the verge of losing the house, I didn't hesitate. I didn't ask questions. I didn't double-check her story. I just listened. She told me her insurance barely covered anything anymore, that her prescriptions had gotten too expensive, and that she might have to sell her home if she couldn't come up with $15,000, 0 cents in the next few weeks. She sounded desperate, broken, and ashamed to even ask. "You've always been the strong one, Jess," she said through sniffles. I wouldn't ask if it wasn't serious, and maybe that's what hurt the most later, not just the lie, but how easily I believed it, how much I wanted to believe it. That week, I sold the most valuable thing I owned, a fully restored 1969 Ford Mustang that my dad left me before he passed away. That car was my pride and joy. I'd spent 3 years working overtime at the hospital, picking up double shifts, pouring every spare dollar I had into bringing it back to life. It wasn't just a car, it was the last piece of him I had left. He'd taught me to drive in that Mustang. We'd gone on road trips, just the two of us, through the winding back roads of Minnesota when I was a teenager. The car still smelled faintly like his cologne, no matter how many times I cleaned it. Selling it felt like giving away a piece of my soul, but I told myself it was worth it. My mom needed me. She had no one else. The buyer was a collector from Denver. He didn't haggle. He paid me $18,000, 0 cents, in cash, on the spot. I remember sitting in my driveway after he drove away, staring at the empty patch of concrete where the Mustang had always been parked. I cried that night, harder than I'd cried in years. But I still wired my mom $15, 0 cents the next morning. No questions, no expectation. I even texted her a silly heart emoji and wrote, "You're gonna be okay. Love you." She didn't reply right away. It took her 4 hours to answer with a brief, "Thank you, honey. I'll pay you back somehow." I told her she didn't have to. I told her I trusted her. I told her I'd always be there. Weeks went by. She didn't mention the money again, and I didn't push. I just assumed she was focused on catching up on bills and getting her life back on track. I'd check in on her via text every few days, but our calls became shorter. She'd say she was tired or on her way to a doctor's appointment. I figured maybe she was just embarrassed, maybe she needed space. It wasn't until a month later, on a random Sunday night, that everything changed. I was scrolling through TikTok to unwind after a long shift at the hospital, mindlessly swiping through cooking videos and travel reels, when a familiar voice stopped me cold. The username said @NanaVibe60. I tapped it, and there she was, my mom, in a silk robe, sitting on her bed, smiling, with a pristine Chanel bag in her lap. "Today's self-care unboxing," she chirped into the camera, waving manicured fingers. "Sometimes you just have to treat yourself, ladies. You've earned it." I sat there frozen, staring, watching her unwrap a $4,000 0 cents purse like it was just another Tuesday, smiling, laughing, cracking jokes about how being fabulous doesn't stop just because you're 60. I refreshed her profile. More videos popped up. Her in a spa, drinking champagne with friends, buying designer makeup, showing off a new feature self. And suddenly I realized she hadn't used the money to pay bills. She'd use it to become an influencer, a glamorous, self-proclaimed lifestyle guru who shopped with my sacrifice. And that was the moment something in me snapped. I couldn't sleep that night. I watched that Chanel unboxing video at least 15 times, hoping, praying that there was some kind of explanation. Maybe she won the bag in a giveaway. Maybe someone else bought it for her. Maybe it wasn't real. I even zoomed in to check the details, trying to convince myself it was a knockoff. But I knew what I was looking at. It was the real thing. My mom had always been careful with money. She used to clip coupons, drive the same beat-up Corolla for over a decade, and lecture me about not ordering drinks at restaurants because water is free. Yet here she was, gushing about luxury skincare routines and healing crystals to a following of a few thousand strangers, flaunting things she swore she could never afford, while I sat in my one-bedroom apartment, carless, exhausted, and betrayed. I spent the next morning combing through her entire TikTok profile. She had been posting for months, apparently starting her channel about a week after I wired her the $15,000 0 cents. Her first few videos were innocent enough: thrift store finds, cooking tips, how I survive on a tight budget. But the tone shifted fast. The comments flooded in. "You're hilarious, Nana. Slay, queen. Manifest that abundance." And she did, or rather, she spent it. After the Chanel video came clips of her at a luxury spa in Scottsdale, sipping on champagne and talking about learning to love herself again. Then came a designer jewelry haul, a custom skincare routine from some boutique Beverly Hills place I couldn't even pronounce. And then a video that made my stomach drop. My mom holding up her new iPhone 14 Pro Max, giggling as she showed off her monogram phone case. The caption read, "When your daughter finally lets you live a little." The comments were full of fire emojis and applause. She was becoming some kind of late bloomer influencer, except it was built on a lie, built on me. I didn't reach out to her right away. I couldn't. Every time I picked up my phone to call, my chest tightened. What would I even say? "Hi, Mom, just saw you unbox a purse worth more than my car. Oh, wait, I don't have one because I sold it for you?" Part of me hoped that maybe she'd reach out first. Maybe she'd feel guilty and come clean. Maybe she'd offer to pay me back, explain herself, apologize. But she didn't. Days passed, then a week. She posted a video titled, "Healing isn't linear, but your outfit can be." She was twirling in front of a mirror in a designer dress I knew cost more than my rent. Then another video showed her at brunch with friends, laughing over mimosas, wearing sunglasses big enough to cover half her face. The caption, "If you can't love yourself, how in the hell you gonna love somebody else?" It wasn't just about the money anymore. It was the audacity, the entitlement, the way she used me, used my grief, my guilt, my love, and turned it into some TikTok aesthetic. The final straw came when she posted a storytime video titled, "How I Learned to Stop Being a Doormat." I couldn't believe what I was hearing. She told the camera, "For years, I relied on other people to make me happy. I used to let people walk all over me, thinking that if I sacrificed enough, I'd be loved. But one day I realized I was done being used. I took control. I started living for me." She was talking about me. I knew it. Every word felt like a slap, like she was rewriting the narrative, painting herself as some martyred phoenix rising from the ashes of my generosity. I gave her my father's car, my savings, my trust, and now she was using it to perform for likes and strangers who had no idea how she got there. I sat on my couch that night staring at my phone, shaking with a rage I didn't know I had. Not the loud, dramatic kind, the cold, still kind, the kind that burrows into your bones and doesn't let go. I opened my camera roll. I still had the pictures I took of the Mustang before I sold it, the polished chrome, the deep blue paint, the personalized plate. I had photos of the buyer handing me the envelope of cash. I had screenshots of the wire transfer to my mom. And now I had her TikToks, her captions, her comments, her face. I started collecting, not for revenge, at least not yet, but because I needed to feel like I had some control, like I wasn't crazy. I made a folder on my laptop and named it Proof. Inside, I organized everything: receipts, screenshots, bank records, texts, video clips. I documented the timeline, when she asked for help, when I sent the money, when her TikTok suddenly transformed from surviving on pennies to luxury for the soul. I dug deeper, found her Instagram, her Facebook, her Pinterest boards. There she was, flaunting the same Chanel purse, tagging it, "Gifted with love." She had no idea how easy it was to track a paper trail when someone's entire life was online. I even found a blog post she wrote for a women's wellness site, where she claimed she had overcome financial hardship through mindset, manifestation, and embracing femininity. I laughed out loud when I read that. Manifestation? She manifested my bank account, maybe. And then something unexpected happened. I got a DM from one of her followers, a young woman named Ellie. "Hi," it read. "Sorry to bother you. Are you Nancy's daughter? I saw a comment somewhere and clicked through your profile. I just wanted to say your mom is amazing. She inspired me to leave a toxic relationship and start focusing on self-care. Just thought you should know, she's changing lives." I stared at the message. My throat tightened. That's when I realized this wasn't just about money or lies, this was about identity. My mom had taken my sacrifice and built a version of herself that wasn't real, but people believed it. They looked up to her, they were following her, admiring her, because they didn't know the cost. They didn't know I was the collateral damage in her reinvention. They didn't know the truth. But I did, and I was done being quiet. I didn't have a plan at first, just the urge to do something, anything. I'd spent weeks oscillating between disbelief and quiet anger, watching my mother's new online persona bloom while I withered in silence. Her videos continued to roll out like clockwork. Brunches with her healing tribe, crystals lined up on sunny windowsills, clips of yoga sessions with voiceovers about self-worth. "You owe no one an explanation for your joy," she'd say in one, her tone serene. "When you stop giving, you start growing." It would have been comical if it hadn't felt like she was talking directly about me. She had rewritten the narrative, casting herself as the once broken woman who finally dared to live boldly, while I, the daughter who had sacrificed her savings and her most treasured possession, wasn't just excluded from the story, I was erased. I spent hours watching her videos, each one a trigger, not because of the luxury or the indulgence, but because of the way she used my help as a launch pad, then conveniently forgot to mention it ever happened. The money she took from me became her turning point. The Mustang I sold became the purse on her arm. The unspoken debt between us turned into an aesthetic. I wanted to confront her. I wanted to scream. But rage alone wouldn't fix anything. And part of me knew this wasn't a conversation. This was a campaign. So I stopped watching passively and started researching. I studied the TikTok algorithm, learned about how engagement drove visibility, how trends evolved, how to stitch and duet videos in a way that grabbed attention. If she was going to keep telling her story, I would start telling mine. Not for revenge, not even for justice, at least that's what I told myself in the beginning, but to reclaim the truth. I didn't want to hurt her. I just wanted people to know what really happened. I wanted someone, anyone, to say, "You're not crazy. You didn't imagine this. She used you." I created a new TikTok account under a pseudonym, something vague and clean, no profile picture, no bio, just a silent presence. I uploaded a simple video, black background, white text. "When your mom cries about not affording medicine, so you sell the car your dad left you, and then you find this." Then a cut to a screen recording of her unboxing the Chanel purse. No commentary. No accusations, just a side-by-side of my bank transfer and her TikTok, backed by a trending audio that amplified the emotional punch. It was subtle, raw, and real. Within hours, the video exploded. Comments flooded in. "She really did that? Wait, is this real? Girl, please tell us the whole story." The algorithm picked it up and it hit people right in the gut. Because they knew someone like her. A narcissist wrapped in silk robes. A spiritual manipulator dressed in crystals and expensive skincare. The kind of person who hurt you with a smile and made you feel guilty for bleeding. But didn't say her name, but those who knew her recognized her. A few followers tagged her account. Some even asked questions directly under her videos. "Didn't you get money from your daughter to pay off debts? Wasn't that purse bought with family money? Interesting how your self-care journey started right after someone else's sacrifice." At first she ignored it. Then she turned off comments. Then she made a video addressing the negativity. She didn't mention me, of course, she never does, but her tone was sharp, her smile thinner. "There are always people who will resent your growth," she said, sipping tea from a mug that said peace, not problems. "But we don't let the energy of the bitter block the blessings of the brave." Her loyal followers rallied behind her, posting affirmations and calling her a queen, but the damage was done. The video I posted had passed 1.2 million views in 3 days. Other creators stitched it, reaction videos popped up. One creator, a woman in her 40s who called herself the online truth teller, broke it down line by line, saying, "This is what generational manipulation looks like." Another stitched her self-care speech with, "You mean self-care on your daughter's dime?" It snowballed, and the more she tried to ignore it, the louder it got. I didn't stop at one video. I uploaded another, a short montage, me with my dad in the Mustang when I was 15, me restoring it years later, the sale receipt, the bank transfer, and finally, a silent shot of me watching her unbox the Chanel purse. The caption, "Healing isn't real when it's built on someone else's pain." That one hit even harder. People started DMing me, nurses, single moms, estranged daughters. They told me their own stories, how they'd been drained dry by mothers who believed motherhood was a permanent one-way contract. They thanked me for speaking up, for putting words to their own invisible wounds. I hadn't expected it. I'd only wanted to clear my own name, but what I got instead was a community. A tribe not of brunching women in wide-brimmed hats, but of women with cracked voices and real stories. My mother, meanwhile, went silent for 4 days. Her once daily posts stopped. When she finally returned, she looked different, harsher, less polished. The video was her standing in her kitchen, holding her phone at an awkward angle. "There are people spreading lies," she said, "people who don't understand the full story, who are trying to tear down what I've built because they're jealous or hurt or angry. But this is my truth. I've worked hard to become who I am, and I won't apologize for finally putting myself first." It was a masterclass in deflection. She painted herself as the victim of some vague digital witch hunt, never once acknowledging the specific claims or addressing the facts. But the comments weren't what they used to be. Half of them were calling her out, others were confused. "This doesn't feel right. But did you actually pay her back? Your daughter sold her car for you? Was that part not true?" She turned comments off again within the hour. That night I got a text from her, first one in over a month. "I see what you're doing. I won't play this game with you. If you had something to say, you could have called." I stared at the screen for a long time, then I typed, "I did call. I called when I sent you that money. I called when I trusted you. You didn't answer. I didn't send it. I deleted the draft." She wasn't ready to hear it. Maybe she never would be. But the world had started to listen, and I wasn't finished talking. I knew the moment I posted the third video that things would shift from exposure to escalation. Up until then, I had been careful, controlled. I didn't name names, didn't show her face, didn't speak directly. I let the evidence speak for itself, let the internet do what it does best, connect the dots and amplify the fallout. But the silence in her last message, the way she twisted the narrative again to play the misunderstood matriarch, pushed something in me. I was tired of being strategic. I was tired of being careful. So I stopped. That third video was different. It started with a screenshot of her text to me, the one that read, "I won't play this game with you. If you had something to say, you could have called." I layered it over a voiceover of my own, not shaky, not angry, steady, calm, tired. I said, "I did call. I called when I sold my dad's car. I called when I wired you $15,000 because you said you couldn't afford your medication. I called when you stopped answering texts after your Chanel unboxing went viral. You didn't listen then, so I stopped speaking to you privately. And now I'm telling my story because I'm done being silent." That video blew everything up. People who had remained neutral started choosing sides. My DMs turned into a war zone. Some were supportive, strangers mostly, sharing their own stories of financial betrayal by parents, praising my calmness, saying I was giving them courage to stand up for themselves. But others were vicious. Some accused me of trying to destroy an older woman just trying to heal. One person wrote, "You're bitter because your mom found herself. Grow up." Another said, "She raised you, you owe her everything." I expected the backlash. What I didn't expect was the email I received 2 days later from a brand that had previously collaborated with my mother. It was short, corporate, and cold. "We were recently made aware of some personal matters involving Nancy and have chosen to pause future sponsorship agreements pending internal review." I read it twice before it hit me. She was losing deals. I wasn't sure how I felt about that. A part of me felt vindicated, another part guilty. It was never about ruining her. I didn't want to see her fall. I wanted her to see what she'd done. But the internet doesn't deal in nuance. It wants villains and heroes, clean lines, and satisfying justice. And whether I intended it or not, I had become the vessel for that justice. Or at least that's how people saw me. I started getting invited onto podcasts. One host, a popular commentator on family estrangement, asked if I wanted to come on and talk about toxic maternal figures in the influencer age. I declined. I wasn't ready to turn this into content. It was still my life. Still my wound, still fresh. Meanwhile, my mother's presence online was shrinking. She posted less frequently, and when she did, the tone was different. Gone were the glossy, high-energy posts with curated backdrops and designer dresses. Now it was just her, no filters, no music, sitting in her kitchen looking tired. "Life isn't always what it seems," she said in one video. "Sometimes people you love betray you. Sometimes they weaponize your kindness and turn the world against you." I watched it from my apartment with a knot in my throat. Not because I believed her, but because I recognized the manipulation. She wasn't speaking to the camera. She was speaking to me through the audience. She wanted sympathy. She wanted me to feel responsible. And for a moment I did. Even after everything, a part of me still wanted her to say she was sorry. Instead, she started a new series called Starting Over at 60. Framing herself as a victim of cancel culture and family drama. Her followers dropped. Some left quietly, others called her out directly. A few creators began dissecting her language, pointing out her avoidance, her contradictions. One video compared her monologues to classic narcissistic gaslighting techniques. Another did a side-by-side of her self-care content with clips of mine, highlighting the missing financial context. It was surreal. My family drama had become internet discourse, a trending topic. And then, just when I thought things had reached a peak, I got a call from my aunt. We weren't close. She was my mom's younger sister, lived in a different state, and we hadn't spoken in years. But she sounded concerned, like someone who'd seen enough to know when things were falling apart. "Jessica," she said, "I don't want to meddle, but your mother called me. She's saying you're trying to destroy her life, that you've humiliated her, that people are harassing her." I stayed quiet. She told me, "You gave her money, yes, but that it wasn't a big deal. That you're just exaggerating everything because you were always jealous of her confidence." That last part made me laugh, out loud, bitterly. My mother had always made me feel small, not overtly, just in the little ways, the eye rolls when I shared accomplishments, the subtle digs when I wore something nice, the compliments that came with a blade. "You look great in that dress. I didn't think it would fit you." And now, even with the truth unraveling around her, she was still reaching for the same tired tactics: divide and dismiss. My aunt paused. "Look," she said, "I don't know what's true, but I saw your videos, I saw the receipts, and I believe you. She's always been like this. I just wanted you to know you're not crazy." It was the first time anyone in my family had said that to me, and it hit harder than I expected. I thanked her. She didn't ask for anything, didn't push reconciliation. She just let the call end there. And that's when I decided it was time to stop reacting and start reclaiming. I opened my laptop and started drafting a post. Not for TikTok, not for virality, but for me, a statement, a final say. I didn't name her, I didn't attack, I just told the story. From beginning to end, the car, the money, the silence, the videos, the erasure, I wrote it all down. Not to accuse, but to release. I ended it with this: there's a difference between forgiveness and forgetting. I've forgiven her because I refuse to carry her weight any longer. But I won't forget, and I won't pretend it didn't happen. I am not a villain for saying no, I am not cruel for setting boundaries, and I am not alone. I posted it on Medium, then closed my laptop. I didn't check the comments, I didn't refresh the stats. I just turned off my phone, made myself tea, and sat in the quiet. Outside, the city moved as it always did. Cars passed, dogs barked, someone laughed on a balcony across the street. And inside, for the first time in months, I felt still. Not victorious, not vindicated, just real, present, free. The internet could do what it wanted now, so could she. I had told the truth. That was enough, for now. The post spread faster than I'd expected. I wasn't tracking views, but people found it anyway. Comments started rolling in within hours, messages from people all over the country and some beyond, sharing their own versions of betrayal, manipulation, and the quiet rage that comes from being taken for granted by the very people who are supposed to love you the most. One woman wrote, "Your story made me cry because I thought I was the only one. I gave up college to work and pay for my mom's cancer treatment, only to find out she used the money to move in with her boyfriend and buy a cruise package." Another, "Thank you for putting into words what I couldn't say. My father guilted me into co-signing a loan. He defaulted. I lost my credit. He bought himself a motorcycle and told everyone I was just irresponsible." These were people like me. People who had been told that family means unconditional support, support that only ever flows one way. People who had been taught to keep their heads down, forgive quietly, and never speak ill of their own blood. My words had opened a door for them, and suddenly, I wasn't alone. What surprised me most, though, was the response from people who knew my mother personally, her old coworkers, people from our neighborhood. Some left anonymous comments, others emailed me directly. One woman who used to work with her at a dental clinic wrote, "Your mom always had a gift for performing. She could be charming, warm, nurturing, but it always felt like a mask. We all knew she played favorites at work. If she liked you, you were golden. If not, she could make your life hell. She made it seem like she was doing you a favor just by acknowledging you. It wasn't malicious gossip. It was confirmation, a mosaic of little red flags that over time formed a pattern." Meanwhile, my mother tried to rebrand again. She began posting content about navigating online bullying and the pain of being misunderstood by those closest to you. She started using hashtags like healing through hurt and silent suffering, painting herself as a victim of my campaign. Her videos became darker, not visually, but emotionally. Gone were the brunch vlogs and shopping hauls. Now it was her staring into the camera with watery eyes, talking about generational pain and daughters who forget who raised them. I knew she was speaking to me, or rather, performing to me, the same way she used to when I was little, putting on an act in front of others, then blaming me behind closed doors. I watched one of those videos, just one, and felt nothing, no anger, no sorrow, just distance. It was like watching a stranger wear my mother's skin. She didn't reach out again, not directly. But word came through my cousin Rachel. We hadn't spoken in over a year, but she called me one evening out of nowhere. She sounded cautious, her tone tight like she was stepping around a minefield. "Hey, Jess, I know things have been weird. I saw your article, and I've also been watching some of your mom's videos. I'm kind of stuck in the middle here, but I wanted to say I'm proud of you. It was brave." I thanked her, unsure what else to say. "She's spiraling," Rachel continued. "She says she's being harassed, that people are sending her hate mail. She said someone mailed her a note that just said thief in big red letters. She's saying she might sell the house and disappear for a while, like go off the grid." I didn't respond. Rachel sighed. "I'm not saying you did anything wrong, but maybe this is going too far." That struck a nerve. Too far. The phrase echoed in my head for hours after the call. Had I gone too far? Was I the villain now? I sat with the question, replaying the last few months in my mind. Selling the car, sending the money, the silence, the TikToks, the twisting of truth, my posts, her collapse. It was a cycle, action, reaction, wound, response. But every time I tried to shift the blame back to myself, I returned to the same conclusion. I had not created this. I had responded to it. With honesty, with evidence, with restraint. If she was spiraling, it was because the mask she'd worn for so long was cracking under pressure, not because I pushed, but because she couldn't hold it up anymore. Then, one afternoon, something unexpected happened. I received a handwritten letter in the mail, no return address, just my name in her handwriting. I opened it slowly, bracing myself for more blame, more manipulation, more pain disguised as sentiment. But what I found was strange. It was short, just a few lines. "Jessica, you've made your point. I see now how it looked. I wish you'd come to me first. But I won't fight you anymore. Take care of yourself." That was it. No apology, no admission, just a vague concession and a closing sentence that could be read as concern or dismissal. I folded the letter and put it in a drawer. I didn't respond. The letter felt less like a gesture of peace and more like a ceasefire. She wasn't sorry. She was tired. Tired of the attention, tired of losing control of the narrative, tired of being caught. And maybe, just maybe, she realized she couldn't win this particular performance. Because this time, the audience had receipts. A few weeks later, I got a promotion at work. I hadn't even told anyone about what had been happening online, not my supervisor, not my colleagues. But something shifted in me. I started walking differently, speaking with more confidence, saying no more often, setting boundaries where I used to stay silent. It wasn't about the money. It wasn't even about the Mustang. It was about reclaiming my voice, reclaiming my narrative. For the first time in my life, I wasn't playing the quiet daughter, the fixer, the emotional sponge who absorbed everything and said nothing. I was simply myself, and people noticed. I used part of my raise to put a down payment on another vintage car. Not a Mustang, not exactly like my dad's, but close. Same era, same energy. When I drove it home, I parked it in the same spot where the original had lived. I stood there for a long time, hand on the hood, letting the sun warm my back. I thought of my dad, of the road trips we never finished, the laughter, the way he always told me to speak up, even when my mother rolled her eyes. Say what you mean, he used to say. Even if it shakes. I had finally done that, and the world hadn't ended. In fact, it had begun. That night, I filmed a video, not for anyone else, just for myself. No hashtags, no music, just me sitting in the car telling the story from the beginning, one last time. Not to go viral, not to hurt her, just to let it go. When I finished, I saved the video to a private folder and shut my phone off. I didn't need the world to hear it, I already had. And that was enough. It was a Tuesday afternoon when the notification popped up on my phone. I hadn't been checking TikTok as much anymore, not like before, but my account was still active and I occasionally logged in to browse or respond to messages. This time, the alert said I'd been tagged in a video. At first, I hesitated. I distanced myself from the storm, from the cycle of reaction and commentary, the waves of outrage and support and unsolicited advice. But curiosity pulled me back in. I opened the app and saw the username immediately, @NancySpeaks, my mother. She'd created a new account. Her old one had gone dormant for weeks after the backlash, and most of her posts had been deleted or set to private. But here she was again, reintroducing herself to the world, or at least trying to. I tapped the video. She was sitting on her porch, the background familiar, the old wind chimes, the pale blue patio furniture she used to keep pristine but now looked a little faded. She didn't look done up. No makeup, no filters. Her eyes were puffy, like she'd been crying, though I wasn't sure if it was for effect or because something had finally pierced her. "Hi," she began, her voice softer than usual. "Some of you may know me, some of you think you do. I've been quiet for a while, and that's been intentional. I needed time to reflect, to grieve, to sit with the consequences of my choices." She paused, looked away, then back. "I'm not here to explain everything or to ask for forgiveness. I just want to tell the truth. My daughter sold something important to help me, and I didn't use that money the way she expected. I justified it to myself at the time, told myself I deserved a new start, that I'd earned a little luxury after everything I'd been through, but what I really did was betray her. Not just financially, but emotionally. I took her love and turned it into leverage, and she has every right to be angry." I watched the whole thing in stunned silence. Not because it was a full apology, it wasn't. She didn't say she was sorry, she didn't promise to pay me back, but it was the closest she'd come to acknowledging the truth in public, and for her, that was monumental. She went on to say she would be stepping away from social media permanently, that she needed to work on herself offline, that she hoped those who had followed her journey would understand. The comments were mixed. Some were forgiving, grateful she'd owned up, while others weren't buying it. Too little, too late, only doing this because she got caught. What about paying her daughter back? But I didn't comment. I didn't share. I didn't even respond. I just turned off my phone and sat with the odd swirl of feelings that rushed in. I didn't feel victorious. There was no sense of triumph. Just a quiet, settled calm, like walking away from a house that had long since stopped feeling like home. I thought about calling her, maybe meeting up to talk, but the truth was, I didn't need that anymore. Closure had come from within, not from anything she could offer. And even if her video was calculated, even if it was just another performance in a long history of image management, she had spoken a version of the truth that would have to be enough. In the weeks that followed, life moved forward. I leaned into my work, started taking classes in the evenings, something I'd wanted to do for years but always put off because I was needed elsewhere. I reconnected with old friends, took small weekend trips alone, let myself experience joy without guilt. My new car became a symbol, not just of financial recovery, but of emotional freedom. It wasn't about the vehicle itself. It was about what it represented. A new chapter, one I had written entirely on my own. One Saturday, I drove out to the lake where my dad used to take me fishing. I hadn't been there in over a decade. The dock was still there, weathered and creaky, the water as still and glassy as I remembered. I sat on the edge, feet dangling above the surface, and pulled out the small leather notebook I started keeping after everything with my mom had unfolded. It wasn't a journal, exactly, more like a place to store pieces of myself. Thoughts, fragments, reflections, even quotes that resonated with me. On that page, I wrote, "Forgiveness is not a transaction. It's not earned through apology. It's a boundary, a decision to no longer let someone's actions write your story." I closed the notebook and watched the sun begin to set, painting the sky in soft oranges and blues. For the first time in what felt like years, I didn't feel haunted by her or by what she'd taken. I felt full, whole. A few days later, I received an envelope in the mail. No return address again, but I recognized the handwriting. Inside was a check, $15,000, 0 cents. Made out to me, no note, no explanation, just the check. I stared at it for a long time. My first instinct was to rip it up, to reject the gesture as too late, too empty. But then I laughed, not out of bitterness, but release. The money wasn't the point. It never had been. I folded the check, slipped it into a drawer, and left it there. Maybe I'd cash it eventually, maybe I wouldn't. But for now, I liked knowing that she had tried, even if it came more from pressure than remorse. She had, in some small way, acknowledged the debt. And that acknowledgement, even silent, was powerful. I didn't tell anyone about the check, not my friends, not my cousin, not even the women who had supported me through the chaos online. That part was just for me, like the notebook, like the lake, like the quiet peace that had begun to bloom in places once filled with tension. I no longer needed the internet to validate my pain. I didn't need views or shares or stitches to feel heard. I had already heard myself, loud and clear. One evening, I posted a final video to my account. It was simple, me standing beside my car, holding the keys, then turning to the camera. No narration, just text on screen. I sold a car to help someone I loved. I thought I lost everything, but I found myself instead. I set it to a soft instrumental song and let it end with a fade out to black. No hashtags, no call to action, just closure. I didn't care how many people watched it. I wasn't looking to go viral anymore. I was done performing. This was the end of the story, at least the part that involved her. After I posted the video, I deleted the app from my phone, not in anger, just with a deep breath, like closing a door that had served its purpose. I wasn't angry anymore. I wasn't hurt. I wasn't waiting. I was living. And that, more than anything she could have given me, was the real gift. Months passed. Seasons changed. The energy in my life had shifted so completely that sometimes I forgot how raw everything once felt. The Mustang I sold was still gone, and while I thought that loss would continue to ache forever, it didn't. A new routine had taken its place, one that belonged entirely to me. I spent quiet mornings walking with coffee in hand, took late-night drives with no destination, just the hum of the road and the sound of my own thoughts. For once, peace wasn't a performance, it was mine. One afternoon in early fall, I found myself cleaning out the storage closet where I kept old photo albums, boxes of childhood drawings, and bits and pieces of a life that had once revolved around other people's needs. I opened a box labeled Dad and sat down on the floor, surrounded by yellowing pictures of his smile, his work boots, faded Polaroids of us in the garage while he taught me how to change spark plugs. Beneath a stack of photos was a sealed envelope I didn't remember putting there. My name was written on the front in his handwriting. My heart caught in my throat. I opened it slowly, carefully, afraid it would fall apart if I rushed. Inside was a single page. He'd written it years ago, probably when he was sick but hadn't told anyone yet. His words were brief, honest, and warm like he always was. He wrote, "Jess, I don't know what the world will look like when you read this, but I do know one thing. You are stronger than you think. Don't let anyone turn your kindness into currency. Give when it feels right and walk away when it doesn't. You deserve peace even if you have to build it yourself." I held the letter to my chest and let the tears come. Not the hot, bitter tears of betrayal. These were different, softer, cleansing. He had always seen me, even when my mother hadn't, even when I hadn't fully seen myself. That evening, I took a drive to the edge of the city, to a quiet overlook where you could see the skyline melt into the trees. I brought the letter with me and read it one more time, then tucked it into the glove box of my new car. A small ritual, a quiet honoring of the man who taught me how to hold a wrench and, unknowingly, how to let go. I never spoke to my mother again after she mailed the check. There were no dramatic confrontations, no climactic sit-downs, no reconciliations dressed in tearful hugs. Just silence. A mutual, clean silence. I didn't hate her. I didn't even wish her harm. I just didn't want to carry her anymore. Sometimes healing isn't about fixing what broke. It's about choosing not to bleed for it any longer. Occasionally, someone would ask me if I ever forgave her. The answer surprised me even when I said it. I did. Not because she asked, and not because she earned it. I forgave her because I needed to, because holding on meant holding myself back. Forgiveness wasn't a gift I gave to her, it was the release I gave myself. Letting go wasn't forgetting, it wasn't pretending it didn't matter. It was remembering with clarity without letting it hurt every time. That chapter of my life closed not with fireworks, but with stillness. With long walks. With laughter that returned to my voice naturally, not forced through clenched teeth. With the joy of saying no, of setting boundaries without guilt. With friendships that deepened because I stopped hiding the parts of me that were bruised. With the quiet pride of knowing that I had faced a storm and come through not just whole, but wiser. In the end, the real story wasn't about the car or the money or even the betrayal. It was about reclaiming the space I had always made for others and finally offering it to myself. It was about breaking cycles, shedding roles, and realizing that being the strong one didn't mean being the one who carried everyone else. It meant being strong enough to say, not anymore. So, I keep driving, some days down familiar roads, others toward places I've never been, and every time I grip the steering wheel, every time I hear the soft hum of the engine beneath me, I'm reminded that I'm not stuck in the past. I'm moving forward, mile by mile, one choice at a time. I am not a victim. I am not a villain. I am simply a woman who remembered her worth, and that is more valuable than anything she ever took from me.